Hey everyone! Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well, but today, let's start by addressing what we're dealing with today. The Department for Work and Pensions, DWP, has quietly been working on a plan that would have drastically impacted millions of people across the UK, particularly those who rely on welfare benefits. This isn't just a minor adjustment, it's a major cut, one that could leave thousands of vulnerable individuals struggling even more. The plan centred around reducing key benefits, specifically a critical £416 payment that has been helping individuals cover their basic living expenses, including rent, bills, and groceries. The £416 payment has been a vital lifeline for many low-income families, disabled people, and those with long-term illnesses. The shock of learning that this payment could be reduced or even eliminated entirely has caused massive concern among those who rely on it to survive. What makes this situation even more alarming is the fact that these plans were being developed in secrecy, with little to no public consultation or clear communication about the changes. The government has been accused of not being transparent and of making decisions that disproportionately affect vulnerable groups, all while working behind closed doors. However, on March 12, 2025, something incredible happened. A group of individuals and advocacy organizations, many of them representing disabled people, low-income families, and welfare rights groups, took the government to court over these proposed cuts. They argued that the DWP's plans to slash £416 from the payments were not just unfair, but unlawful. And the High Court agreed. This legal victory was a huge step in the right direction for those who have been fighting to protect welfare rights in the UK. The court's ruling effectively stopped the DWP from moving forward with their cuts, at least for now. This is a temporary decision, but it's incredibly significant because it puts a halt on a plan that could have had devastating consequences for so many people. It's an example of the power of the people standing up for what's right and demanding that the government be held accountable for its actions. It's also a reminder of how important it is to challenge policies that harm the most vulnerable in our society. Now, the ruling by the High Court has certainly shaken things up, but it's important to understand that this legal victory doesn't necessarily mean that the cuts are off the table for good. While the DWP's plans to reduce the £416 payments have been temporarily halted, the government still has the option to appeal the decision or modify their plans in the future. The case could go through more rounds of legal challenges, and in the meantime, the government may find ways to revise its approach. This ruling is just one step in a much larger battle over the future of welfare payments in the UK, and it's far from over. In fact, the fight for benefits reform will likely continue to be a major issue in the coming months, and the outcome will have a lasting impact on the lives of millions of people. So while we celebrate this legal victory, it's crucial to remember that the battle is ongoing, and vigilance is necessary to ensure that the government doesn't find ways to bypass the court's ruling or implement even harsher policies. For those wondering why this £416 payment matters so much, let's break it down a bit further. Universal credit is a social safety net designed to help individuals and families who are struggling to make ends meet. The £416 payment is a significant portion of that, and for many people, it's more than just a helpful supplement, it's an absolute necessity. Imagine trying to survive on less than that amount in a world where rent, utilities, and food prices continue to rise. The loss of £416 could make the difference between having enough to get by and falling into deeper financial hardship. For people with disabilities, long-term illnesses, or those who have faced periods of unemployment, benefits like universal credit provide the support they need to keep a roof over their heads and feed their families. Cutting this payment would leave them with very few options, and the consequences could be dire. From increased homelessness to rising food insecurity, the effects of such cuts would be felt by the most vulnerable in society. That's why so many people and organizations have been raising alarms about the government's plans. They simply cannot afford to lose this support. In addition to the direct impact on individuals, this case also sheds light on the broader issue of how the government has been handling welfare policies over the past decade. Austerity measures, cuts to social services, and changes to the benefits system have been part of the UK government's approach to managing public finances. But these measures have disproportionately hurt those who are already the most vulnerable, and the ongoing shift towards more punitive welfare policies has caused significant harm. Critics argue that the DWP's actions reflect a government that is out of touch with the realities faced by everyday people, especially those who depend on social safety nets. Many see these cuts as part of a larger trend of undermining the welfare state, prioritizing budget cuts over the well-being of citizens. This case is a microcosm of a much larger debate about the role of the state in supporting its citizens and whether the government's focus is on helping those in need or reducing spending at the expense of vulnerable populations. The immediate impact of this court ruling is that the government is no longer able to implement the cuts to universal credit that had been planned for the near future. But this doesn't mean that the government will sit idly by. If anything, this legal challenge may only intensify the debate about welfare reform. The DWP could still come back with a revised plan or pursue further legal avenues to achieve their objectives. The government may also attempt to justify these cuts by arguing that they are necessary for financial reasons, despite the clear human costs. Advocates for welfare reform, on the other hand, will continue to push for the protection and expansion of benefits, arguing that the government must prioritize the welfare of its citizens over financial constraints. The outcome of this legal case will set a precedent for how welfare cases are handled in the future and could influence future government policy on social security. This court victory has also sparked renewed discussions about the role of the public in holding the government accountable. The groups that challenged the DWP's plan were not just fighting for their own interests, they were fighting for the broader public, for people who might not even realize the threat posed by these cuts. This case is a reminder of how important it is for citizens to be actively involved in the political process and to be aware of the policies being proposed by the government. Many people are unaware of the full scope of cuts and reforms happening behind closed doors, and this case highlights the necessity of staying informed and speaking out when policies are being made that could have detrimental effects. The power of collective action cannot be underestimated, and this legal victory is a testament to the fact that when people come together and demand justice, they can make a difference. Looking ahead, the challenge now is to ensure that this ruling leads to long-term change. While it's a major victory to halt these cuts for now, the larger issue of welfare reform remains unresolved. We must continue to advocate for policies that prioritize the needs of the most vulnerable, ensuring that future generations aren't left with the same hardships faced by today's welfare recipients. As citizens, we must remain vigilant, continue to put pressure on the government, and support organizations that are fighting to protect benefits. The road ahead won't be easy, but it's clear that public action has the power to bring about meaningful change. If you're someone who relies on these benefits, or if you know people who are affected, it's crucial that you stay informed. The situation is still very much in flux, and the government's next moves will be critical. Make sure you know your rights and don't hesitate to seek advice or assistance if you need it. Also, keep an eye out for future campaigns, petitions, and protests that are likely to be organized by welfare rights groups. The more support they get, the better the chances are of keeping pressure on the government to ensure that benefits are protected. Remember, when we stand together, we can have a real impact, and this recent victory proves that we're not powerless in the face of government cuts. This entire situation is a wake-up call for everyone. It's a reminder that the fight for social justice doesn't stop with one victory, it's an ongoing battle. If we want to see a fairer society where everyone has access to the support they need to live a dignified life, we must stay engaged, informed, and active. The High Court ruling is a big step forward, but it's just one part of a much larger conversation about how we care for the most vulnerable members of society. So, let's not let this momentum fade. Let's continue to push for better policies, better protections, and a better future for all. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, I'd love to hear from you. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up, share it with others, and don't forget to subscribe for more important updates like this one.